Let me go ahead and create a new file. I'll call it as linux1.md. Okay, right. So the first thing we would try to understand is, okay, which shell are you running? So how would I know what is my shell, right? Because there are many shell programs, and in the last class we have spoken about bash, born again shell. Okay, and we would be using born again shell because that is very popular shell, right? In some hardware devices you might end up finding some other shell devices, some other shell devices. So, and I have also spoken about dollar and hash. Yeah, right. Yeah. So what I'll try to do is, for this, I would basically get into my AWS account and quickly create one Ubuntu instance. Right. Oh, these machines are running from the morning, oh, man. Let me shut down them, man. So I don't want to be unnecessarily charged for them. Right. Okay. Now let me click on launch instance. Okay. And I would be creating a Ubuntu instance. I'm okay with the free tier machine, T2 Micro. Okay. I would be creating this as Linux Ubuntu. Okay. So we'll be going ahead and then creating the other distributions also as the need comes. But right now, whatever I'm discussing has nothing to do with what is your operating system. These commands work in every operating system. So let us wait for this instance to be up. Okay. So this instance is up. Let me try to log in into this instance. So for logging in into this instance, I have installed a git bash terminal. Okay. Right. Now, if you want to understand what is the terminal which you are trying to use, just use the simple command echo $0. What is the response which you got? You got it as bash. If you want to understand what is the terminal which you are trying to run, okay, you would be getting bash. In some cases, you might get something like bin/bash. So it doesn't matter whether it is bin/bash or whether it is basically bash. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Okay, right. So to know this, what is that you can do? Execute the command echo $0. $0 will try to tell you what is your terminal. What is your terminal? Am I clear on this? Yeah. So, and in Linux, there are certain what do you call certain commands which come with basically certain they have certain characteristics. Let us look at what those commands are. Okay. So now, basically, whenever you are running any program, if you want to suspend that program or if you want to abort the execution of the program, okay. So I'll not put it in this way. I'll put it as Linux useful utils. Okay. The first one is which shell are you running? So if you want to know that, then go ahead and do this. And the next thing is basically how to aborting and suspending the execution of Linux programs. So for this, what I would be doing is I would be creating one simple command, okay, which is ping google.com. We know everyone in this room knows what this is. Okay. So now if I do control C, this will execute the program. This will abort the program. Okay. Now let me do control Z. Control Z will suspend the program or stop the program. Okay. So you have these two characters, control C and control Z. Control C will abort the execution. Okay, which means it will terminate the program. It will not worry about the step. Whereas control Z or control Z character is basically it will try to, okay, send a stop message to your program saying that please stop the execution of this. The user doesn't want you to continue with this program. Am I clear on this? So control Z suspends the program. Okay, and control C aborts the program. Are we clear, guys, with this? Whenever you are running any program, if the program is not responding, right? So then you can basically use these two options. Use these two options, right? Okay. So when we learn about processes, we will definitely try to basically use something called as kill. There is something called as kill, which would basically help us in killing the process also. But these two are very simple utilities which would definitely help you out whenever you are trying to run certain programs. Okay, sir. So now, whenever we are working with shell, whenever we are working with shell, basically how shell works is shell command will take an input from some stream. Okay. And in the last class, we have already discussed that that stream is standard input by default, and uh, the default stream which for the output is standard output. So that's the reason when you type ping google.com, it is displaying all the text on your terminal, all the text on your terminal. Okay. So if we want, what we can do is we can redirect or send the output of this command to other devices, okay. So that is generally which we call as redirect. So in Linux we have this command for redirecting. So redirecting output, okay, of a command to a file instead of terminal. Okay, and if you remember, terminal is our standard output device and standard error device. Okay, so in that case, what you can do is you can execute this. You can execute whatever Linux command which you want to use, one greater than symbol and F5. So let me try this example. So ping -c google -c4 google.com. Okay, and let me give this to ping results.txt. Ping results.txt. So basically what happens in here is it will try to redirect the output. It will try to redirect the output to other files. Okay. So very soon we will be understanding the power of file in Linux, because in Linux files are very much strong. Okay. Because we will come to a conclusion very soon in our Linux classes saying that everything in Linux is a file. Okay. Right. Now let me try to execute this command. If you see, I don't have any files in this. My file list is empty. Okay. I don't have any files. Okay. So I'll be trying to execute a command ping -c for google.com. Let us see what would be the output of it. Now I want to redirect this output to some file. So I'm giving that file's name as ping results.txt. So if you see, there is no output that would be displayed. There is no output that would be displayed. Okay, because it has been redirected. Now, if I basically look into what is inside my file, we have looked into cat concatenate command. So the cat command has the output. Okay, the cat command has the output. Now, if I try to do ping -c rather than 4, if I give 2 and then do this, what it would do is it would try to remove all the contents. It would recreate the file. If you see, I have only 2 stuffs, right? So whenever you are redirecting, there is one more option. Okay, so if you want to append, the text to existing file, okay, use double greater than symbol. Use double greater than symbol. So let me use this example: ping -c 10 google.com double ping results.txt. Now let me execute this. Let us see what happens. Now let us try to look into this file. So if you see this file initially had this, okay, till here. And now what has happened? This got appended. This got added to your existing file. So whenever you redirect the output, you can redirect the output in 2 ways. Whether you want to create a file or whether you want to basically look at basically what do you call whether you want to redirect the file or whether you want to append the content to your stuff, right? The same thing we can do for error text and all of that stuff, right? Okay, now if this is what it is, now let me look into this. There is one okay, are you seeing this file? There is a file called as cpu info in this location. Now if I want to give this as an input, okay, we have looked at output redirection. Okay, so redirecting input can be done using less than character. Okay, so the example is, let me try to give head, and you can give any file's name, less than /proc /cpu info, or you can give test results.txt if you want. Okay, right? So I'm just giving this example. So let me type head. We know head, what head does. Head will show first 10 lines of your program. Okay, so proc /cpu info. Sorry, saying it has shown first 10 lines of the program. Not only output, you can redirect the input as well. Am I clear on this? So in Linux commands, whenever you basically look at, okay, less than and greater than symbol, this especially comes in shell scripts and all of that stuff where people use this less than and greater than, and we would find it difficult. But less than and greater than symbols, especially when you are dealing with terminals, are nothing but redirections. Less than symbol is input redirection and greater than symbol is an output redirection. Are we clear so far, guys? Whenever we work with Linux, okay, we would have certain kinds of common error messages, right? So for example, let me show you some common errors. Right, the common errors which you would see generally in Linux is no such file or directory. So for example, if you tell ls test me, okay, sorry, saying no such file or directory, this error comes when you are trying to access a file which doesn't exist, okay, right? And then there is one error which basically says file exists, okay. So now if I type touch ping results.txt, okay, then if I look into not this command, we will not have this error in this touch command. Okay, yeah. But there are some commands where you're trying to create a directory and it might tell that there is already a file with that. You cannot create that. You cannot create that. Okay. So, and the other error which you would see is not a directory. So you're trying to execute, okay, a directory command on a file, or sometimes you might get an error saying that is a directory. Okay. Not a directory error comes whenever you're trying to execute a directory command on a file. And is a directory command comes into play whenever you try to execute the command. Okay. So for example, let me show this. Touch A by B. Okay. So, or let me do this. Touch A, sorry, and then let me create touch A by B. Are you seeing? Okay. So in Linux, if you understand the directory structure, you slash is used for a directory, and inside slash you can have files. But we have created a file, and then within the file we are asking to create a file again. So you would see such error messages. You would see such error messages, right? The other error message which you would see is no space left on device. This is a very straightforward message, right? This is whenever you are running out of space. The other error which you would get is permission denied. So you don't have an access. So for example, if I basically say vi at c no, resolve.conf, okay, and let me make some changes. Sorry, seeing warning read only file, and let me try to do wq. So it is trying to tell that you don't have an option. You cannot do this. Okay. So if I say echo hello, this will print hello. Now I am redirecting or forwarding this output to slash etc slash resolve.conf. So what is the error which I'm trying to basically see? You would be basically getting an error which is trying to tell that you don't have permission. You cannot do this. You cannot do this. Am I clear, guys? Right? And then basically there are two other errors, which is like operation not permitted. So you basically cannot do it because someone else has ownership on that. And then there is one more error which is too much early for me to speak, but basically whenever you would see this, especially in good old Linux servers kind of days, which where we had something called a segmentation fault and all of that stuff. Okay. So generally it means that someone had screwed up with your stuff. Okay. So the program tried to access some part of the memory that it is not supposed to be allowed to do it, and then your operating system has killed it. Okay. Similarly, you would see some bus errors and all of that stuff, but very rarely we see those kind of errors. Very rarely we see those kind of errors. So am I clear on this common errors? Right. So generally, whenever you come across these errors, the Linux is showing you these errors because you're not supposed to touch them, right? Or these are the kinds of errors which you might end up basically creating, right? So that is something which is happening over here. That's something which is happening over here, right? So now, if you want to, basically get into some other areas of Linux. Now, in Linux, what is that we try to do? We try to run some programs. We try to run some programs. And when we try to run some programs, obviously, for example, the program, let us assume that your organization wants to run some of the web application on a Linux server. So generally, whenever you deal with these kind of stuffs, right, most of our times we end up creating files. We end up creating files. So when we create files, let us try to understand how do I create a file, which we have done anyway. Okay. So let us also try to understand something called as links in Linux. Okay. What are links in Linux, and how do you basically look at links? How do you basically look at links? So, okay, what is soft link? soft link is also called as symbolic link. Okay, in Linux. And what is hard link? Okay, generally you would see people trying to speak about the soft link and hard link. To be very specific, they are quite simple. Soft link is nothing but it is a link to the original file. You have some original file somewhere, and soft link is basically a link to that. Okay, whereas when it comes to hard link is a copy of that file. When it comes to a hard link is copy of that file. That means that if you delete the original file, soft link might not work out. Because it is pointing out to a file which no longer exists. But when it comes to hard link, since hard link is a copy of that file, even if you delete the original file, your existing stuff will still work out. Existing stuff will still work out. Okay, so let us try to write that. Okay, soft link or symbolic link, okay, is an actual link to original file. Okay, whereas hard link is a mirror copy of original file. Okay, so just because of this, if you delete the original file, if you delete the original file, soft link has no value. Or why? Since whatever it points to, whatever file it points to, no longer exists. Okay, so in the case of hard link, okay, if you delete the original file, okay, hard link will still has the data of the original file. Am I clear on this? Okay, so if you still want to understand many other differences, okay, soft link can work across file systems, so can cross the file systems. Okay, so allows you to link between directories, right? Permissions, okay, but when it comes to permissions will not be updated. Okay, so it has only the path to original file, not contents of it. When it comes to hard link, okay, hard link cannot cross file system boundaries. What do I mean by that is it can exist on same file system. Okay, so you cannot have two different file systems and make hard links work. Okay, so using hard links you cannot link directories. Okay, now basically permissions will be updated if we change the source. This is in a nutshell. If you want to understand what happens, this is basically what happens, right? So, and now it has contents of original file. Okay, right. So let us create a symbolic link. Okay, create a symlink or soft link. Okay, let me create a directory. Okay, let me write that make their soft test. Okay, let me write the commands over here. Okay, so make their soft test. Now I'll get into this soft test. Okay, and over here I'll be creating a file. Okay, so I'll be creating a file called as echo welcome to Linux, and then I'm redirecting this output to a file which is called as source.txt. Now if you basically look into what are contents of source.txt, you would see welcome to Linux. Okay, am I clear on this? Okay, right. Now what I'll try to do is, let me try to create a link. Okay, to create a sim link, I'm using ln-s. Create me a link, okay, where the original file is source.txt, and I am linking this to source.file. I'm linking this to source.file. So I'm linking source.txt to a file which is called as source.file. Now let me look into cat source.file. You would see the content. If you look at ls, you are seeing two files, source.file and source.txt. If you look at ls-la, so are you seeing there is some different notation which is given over here? Okay, I'll not write all of these commands. I'll try to have a screenshot. You can type them in. So are you seeing this? The source.file is linked to source.txt. Is linked to source.txt. But if you observe permissions, these are permissions. Permissions are different. If you look into permissions, permissions are different. Okay. So this section, and every symbolic link will have this L. Every link will have this L. So let me go ahead and save this in images, copy path, linux 8.png. Okay. So preview dot slash images slash linux 8.png. Right. Now, okay, we have basically created a symbolic link. Okay, if you want to look into the symbolic link, you can look into ls-la and basically look into the whole stuff. Okay, now let me do this. Let me go ahead and remove source.txt, and now let me try to look at the contents of source.file. Are you getting this error? Yeah, right. So that is what symbolic link is for you. Okay, so let me save this one also, and let me call it as linux 9.png, and preview dot slash images slash linux 9.png. Okay, now let us try to identify, or let us try to create a hard link. Let us try to create a hard link. Okay, so for that, what I would do is, okay, echo welcome to Linux, and then I would be creating or redirecting this output to a file which is called as source.txt. Okay, or let me do one thing. Let me do this in a different folder. Cd dot dot make their hard test. Okay, cd hard test. Okay, and let me create a file cat, or we don't have the file, right? Echo welcome to Linux. Okay, and let me call it as source.txt. Okay, now what I'll try to do is I'll try to create ln, and this time I will try to tell that my source is source.txt, and for that I am trying to create source.hardlink. Okay, I'm creating a file called as source.hardlink. Now, if you basically look into the files, cat source.hardlink, you will be seeing welcome to Linux. You will be seeing welcome to Linux. And if you basically look ls hyphen l, so if you basically look, we have the same permissions. Okay, we have the same permissions which basically got updated over here. Okay, and now what I would basically try to do is let me remove the source file. So rm source.txt and my cat source.hardlink will still work. Am I clear on this? Generally in Linux, especially when you go down the line and work with different web servers, then basically what happens is you would see a lot of soft links and hard links going around over there. So let me save this. Is everyone in the room now clear with hard links? Soft link and hard link? Yes, sir. Yeah, good. Now, there is one question. Okay, right. Let us try to understand if it basically is creating the file copy. This is one genuine question, right? So, what will be difference between hard link and normally copied file? Yes or no? Is this a legitimate question now? Yeah. So now what I would do is let me remove source.hardlink. Okay. I'll have empty files. Let me create the content again. So echo welcome to Linux, and let me call it as source. This is my source. I'm creating a file named source. Now if you look into ls, I have a file called as source. And for this source, what I would try to create is I would try to create, okay, a hard link ln source hard link. Okay, and then I will also copy this source into a file called as copy or copied file. Am I clear on this? So in this directory, if you look into ls-al, I have three files now. One is source, the second one is hard link, the third one is copied file. Are we clear? Yeah. Okay, right. Now let me basically do this. Echo, okay, welcome to Qt. I am adding this message. Okay, this is an append message to a hard link. Now let me try to cat hard link. What is it I'm getting? I'm basically getting this cat source. Okay, cat copied file. What is the difference which you have observed? What is the difference which you have observed? Once I create a link and then if I change my source or destination, right, the other one automatically changes. But if I copy the file, there will not be any link. So updating your copied file will not impact the source, will not impact the source. So clear on this, sir? Yeah. Now I'm just putting, I'm not writing any demonstration over here. I'm just putting the image. You just look into the contents of it. Okay. So, right. Good, sir. So basically, once we have this idea of basically understanding the files, right, the next thing which we need to basically worry about is, okay, I know files will have there will be files with, in Linux we have files of three types now. Okay, one is a file which will have some content, right? The other one is basically you might have a soft link and you might have a hard link. You might have a soft link and you might have a hard link. Okay, right? So things are good so far. Now let us try to basically get into the next aspect, next aspect of Linux. Okay, so which is, how do I copy uh, basically multiple directories, right, at one shot. And last week I've asked you to do this. Okay, if you execute, if you have remembered, we have spoken about CP command, and in CP command we have basically looked into the command line options, -r and all of that stuff, right? Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. Good. So copy files, moving files and moving directories. Okay, removing files and removing directories. Can you guys deal with this? Rajendra, I will definitely speak about the file permissions, but before I speak about file permissions, I need to introduce users, right? I need to introduce user concept. Okay, till now we have not introduced user concept. I will speak about everything, sir. Please be patient with me. We are going with steps one after the other. Rajendra, is that okay? Right. Okay. Right. Now let us basically, okay, try to look into our next aspect of Linux, right? And whenever we work with Linux systems, there is basically some amount of or let me put it in this way. So if I have to speak about this command, whenever we work with Linux, generally we work with commands. We work with commands. Okay, let it be anything which we try to basically do, right? So there are many commands which are basically available, and they basically try to help you a lot. They try to help you a lot. Okay, so now let me basically speak about those commands. Okay, which are very much useful. Which are very much useful. The commands which I'm trying to speak about are, okay, yeah, fine. So let me basically look into this. Yeah, fine. So let us basically get started and then try to resolve this mystery about commands. Mystery about commands. Okay. So the first thing which I want to speak about is a command called as, okay. So identifying, okay, commands. Identifying commands. Okay. The first command which I want to speak about as part of this is a command called as type. A command called as type. Am I clear on this? So whenever you use this type command, this command will give you a type. Okay. And this command will basically try to tell you what is the type of the command which you are basically trying to use. Okay. So let me give you some examples. Okay. So type command is a shell built-in command which displays the command which displays the kind of command. Okay. Once you give a particular command name. So let us try some examples. Let me try to give a command called as, what is the type of a command called as type? So in the command you can give any command name, right? Let me give type ls first. Okay. So what is this ls commands type? Okay. And then I would give, what is the type of command cp? What is the type of command ping? What is the type of command type? Okay. Right. Let me give this. So type ls. So what is it trying to tell? Your ls command is actually an alias command. Okay. So whenever you are typing an ls command, it is equivalent to ls hyphen hyphen color equal to auto. Okay. Right. And then type cp. Okay. It is trying to tell that cp is basically a hashed command and it is bin slash cp. This is where your command is basically available. Type ping. Okay. And then if you basically give type command, it is trying to tell the type command is a shell built in. So the type command will basically tell additional information about your commands. Okay. You might not use this command also, but generally when we learn Linux, we need to identify commands. And for identifying commands, it is essential you know about this. It is essential you know about this. Right. Okay. Now, there is one more command which is called as which. What this which command does is it displays an executable location. It displays executable location. Okay. So for example, you can, if you type which ls, let me go over here, which ls bin slash ls, this is the location where your command is basically available. In the last class we have discussed that every command is a program written. Okay. And whenever you execute that command, that program runs and it would generally give you output, right? So which ping slash bin slash ping, right? So which git, right? So are you seeing, these are the commands and these commands generally try to tell what is the location, what is the displays an executable location. Guys, I would expect that you practice these stuffs, right? Don't try to remember these commands, for God's sake. Please don't try to remember these commands. Okay. So as in the last class I have spoken about Linux cheat sheet. Have that cheat sheet with you and get to use this command. Don't even try to remember these commands. Okay. So if you remember these commands, all of my effort will get as a waste, right? Because I'm not basically speaking uh, making you remember the commands. That is the last thing on the world which I want to basically get it through. Okay. Right. Now let me speak about getting a commands documentation. So how do you get the commands documentation? Okay. The first thing which I want to speak about is I want to speak about help. I want to speak about help. Okay. So bash has a built-in help facility for each of the shell built-in commands. Shell built-ins. Okay, but if that is help, if you have created your own command, then you might not see this. Okay, so let us basically try for an example. Okay, so sorry, right, let me try to tell help cd. Sorry, saying we see the whole stuff. Okay, you will see the whole command which comes into basically play. It would display the whole stuff for you. Okay, right, and then we have one more thing which is called as hyphen hyphen help. Okay, so this is not guarantee that hyphen hyphen help is present for every command. Many executable programs support a hyphen hyphen help. This is a best practice. It is not guarantee that every command will have. Okay, that displays the description of commands. Okay, so for example, here you can type make dir hyphen hyphen help. Okay, so make dir hyphen hyphen help. Yeah, this is the next thing which you can do. And in the last week itself, we have spoken about one more option, which is manual man command. Okay, so right, most executable commands, most executable programs, okay, intended for command line usage. Command line usage will provide a manual. Will provide manual. Manual is nothing but uh, basically some documentation. So the syntax will be man, and then you can give any program over here. So any command. Okay. So for example, if I want to basically speak about it, let me type man ls. If I type man ls, I'll be seeing the whole manual of ls. Okay. So you have to click enter. Okay. And if you want to quit, just type q. That's it. That is what manual is all about. Manual is all about. Okay. Right. So generally, okay, if we have lot of manuals, and searching through manuals will be difficult. Okay, so there is a command which will help you in displaying the appropriate commands. So that command is called as apropos. Display appropriate commands. Okay, you would never use this command. Okay, but this is a very useful command. Sometimes if you are not clear about what has to be done, so apropos, and let us assume that I want to do something with respect to Linux disk partitions. I will type partition. Okay, I might have messed with the stuff. Uh, right. So let me try part. Oh, why is it not working? Strange. Do I need to update help by any chance? Yeah, yeah. No, no. This is not about. This is a help or getting documentation, right? So let me try. So apt-get update will not do anything, but just mm, Okay, right. So let me try apropos encrypt. It will search for the manual pages, man. That is something which is man. There's something wrong in the system. Okay, but let me try to tell you what this command will do. What this command will basically try to do is this command will try to look through your documentation or your manual pages, and then it will try to tell you the different options that are available. So for example, if you type search for partition, it will try to search into the all the manual pages of the commands. Okay, so let me still give you the example, but I'm not sure why it is not working over here. Let me try this probably offline in a different distribution. Okay, so if you try this, it will try to show you the different commands that are available, which basically are different instances of the what do you call the documentation. This term has appeared, and it will try to give you the commands. Okay, right, and I think that that's mostly it. And there is one more program which is called as info, right? So this info command, let me try to. Okay, so if you look into info command gives you a lot of information about different options which you have. Okay, so for example, if you want to understand any of the Linux common options, there is a whole documentation given at one place. Okay, so this is a beast. Okay, if you want to know everything about Linux, almost uh, all the information is present over here. Okay, so info command. Okay, so info manuals are basically the pages. Okay, this command will okay will show manuals. Okay, with hyperlinked pages, with hyperlinked, much like web documentation, much like web documentation. So if you want, if you look into this command, there is a whole stuff over here. So if you see, there is whole stuff. And now whenever you want to basically look into any command, you can basically look into this. If you want to understand what is said, so you just move your mouse around and click on introduction. It is trying to tell that okay, set is a stream editor. So if you want to look into all of the help in Linux, then you can use this info command. You can look into this info is a quite a beast kind of a command. We'll generally not use this, but yeah, there is no command which is useless, right? Some people like a different way of dealing with these commands. Okay, right. Apropos is the only command which was not working, but let me find out the reason for that. That's okay. Okay, so are we clear? There are many ways of getting helps. There are many ways of getting helps, right? Yeah, right. So if you see, these are all the commands which has a word called as partition in them. Uh, you can search for terms, right? Thanks, Venkatesh. Okay. So if you look into direction, these are the commands which should basically help you out. Okay. So now let us basically speak about one of the important aspect of uh, the Linux, right? Which is pipelines. Okay. So what is this pipeline? Pipeline is a capability of a command. Is a capability of commands to okay read the output. Okay, read the output of the command. Okay, am I clear on this? To the capability of the pipeline is basically to read the output of the command Okay, as input to other command. So for example, okay, now let me get into cd slash bin. If I type ls, I'll be getting whole of this stuff. Okay. Now, if I want to see this one page after the other page, if I do ls hyphen la, I'll be getting all of this. Now, this is the output of the command. Now, I want to pass the output of this command as an input to the other command. Input to the other command, which can basically show me one page at a time, is less. So, if you see, I'm using this pipe operator. So, you will be seeing only one page at a time. Am I clear on this? Okay. So, generally, okay, if you look at the single, is operator is referred as pipe. Okay, and if you want to use this command, you would be using this command as, okay, let me write it as command one, whatever your command one is, pipe the output of it to the command to the command. Okay, so now the output of one command would be basically used to send an output to the other command. Okay, but generally, okay, pipelines are not to just pass the commands from one place to other place, right? So we can do some filterings also over here. Okay, we can do some filters. So for filtering we have some commands in linux. Okay, so pipelines are often used to perform complex operations on data. Okay, so it is basically possible for you to put several commands together into a pipeline into a pipeline. Okay, so let us try to do. Okay, so what you try to do is, let us try to look at the outputs of the command. Okay, so this is the command which I would type is ls, okay, hyphen al slash bin, and I'm giving a different path which is user slash bin. So I'm giving two directories. So if you see, the output of this command is very much huge. And now what I'll try to do is, I'll try to pass this output to a command called as sort. Okay, now if you basically look into it, I have a sorted output of all of this, but still there are a lot of commands over here. I want to see one command at a time, so I'll pass the output of sort to less. So if you see, I see the sorted output page by page. I see the sorted output page by page. Okay, so am I clear on this? Passing the output of one command into another command. Okay, see, there is one difference which you need to understand. This greater than symbol will pass the output to create a file, whereas this pipeline command will use the output of one command and it would make it as an input to the other command. Am I clear on this distinction? Right, so greater than is for a file, whereas pipe is basically for sorting out a input. Okay, sorting out a output as an input to other command. Do we have any doubt over here? So generally when people end up writing shell scripts, they will be writing loads of pipe symbols. Do we have any problem with this? Guys, am I audible? Right? So are we clear with my statement? Okay. So let me do this for you. ls hyphen al slash bin slash user slash bin. I will try to sort. Okay. Not only sort, I will try to find unique commands. This uniq is unique command. Okay. And after that, I want to find the word count. WCB command will basically give me the word count. Hyphen L will try to give me the lines. It is trying to tell that you have 872 lines, 872 unique lines. Okay. So you can make multiple commands and then combine it together as a pipeline. And when you combine it together as a pipeline, the output of one command will be processed as the input to the other command. Actually, here we need to speak about grep also, right? Which is regular expressions. But regular expressions, I want to deal it differently. I want to deal the whole regular expressions differently. But do we understand this pipeline concept? Good. So let me also add this. Okay. So there is one program which I basically need to speak about. Okay. That command which I want you guys to experiment with this. The command called as T. Read from standard input and output to std out and files, or let me not do all of that. T. Okay. So what this T command is, if I want to find out what this T command is, man T. T command will read from standard input and write to standard output and files. Okay. So this command will read from standard input and it will basically output to std out and then basically files. Okay. So now if you want to basically look into what I mean by this, for example, if I type ls slash user slash bin, and if I want to see the output of this in a file, then I'll be writing something like redirect, okay, ls dot txt. Oh, I'm in a, let me basically come to home direct. Okay, right. But if I do this, t, okay, ls t.txt, then what happens is it would redirect the output to a file. Okay, if you look into the file cat lst.txt, this file also will have output and it will also give it back to your standard input. If you are using this greater than symbol will only redirect the output to the file. It will not show you on the screen. But if you use T command will also write into the file and it will also show you onto the standard input. Am I clear on this? Difference between, okay, this greater than command and T command. Greater than command will basically send the output only to a file. T command will send the output to the file and also it will show you on the screen, which is your standard output device. Are we clear on this? Okay. So T command will read from standard input and send the output to standard output and files also. That is an advantage. If you use greater than symbol, you will not see what is happening. You will not see what is happening. So the simple example of this is ls hyphen al slash bin slash user slash bin. So you will get some output. And that output, if I say t ls.txt, it will try to store the output in t.txt, and after that I'll also get on the command line. So I can do sort unique and wc-l, word count -l. Is this command understandable now? Or anyone is having problem in understanding this command? If you have any problem in understanding this command, I will make it simple for you. Right? Good. Good. Right. So let me stop it at that. Okay. And from Tuesday onwards, okay, our next step would be we will try to see the world, or we will try to see how our Linux command sees the commands. We will try to understand what is happening internally, right? We will try to basically look into what is the still symbols, expressions. We will be getting into the interesting aspects of Linux. But so far, is Linux interesting? Okay. We have not spoken much, but we have spoken interesting things. We have spoken necessary things. Okay, sir. I'll stop it at that, and I will ensure that your basic Kubernetes nodes is also updated. I'm sorry. I think I had to look into it, but I have not looked into it. Right. So I don't want you to understand Linux by remembering commands. Please don't do that. Okay. If that is the case, it would be very simple for me. Okay. Right.
Thanks for watching. For more videos, subscribe our channel and click on bell icon.